Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Austin Colony and watched the stars flicker in ways that made his stomach turn cold. The distant lights were not stars at all, but massive ships moving through space toward his small world. He had seen those ships before in the worst dreams that visited him. Every night since the first contact 30 years ago, the Zephyrian Empire had come to Earth with promises of trade and friendship. Their tall blue-skinned leaders spoke in smooth voices about cooperation between species. They brought gifts of technology and knowledge that seemed too good to be true. Jake remembered being a young soldier then, watching the first alien ships land on Earth with wonder in his eyes. That wonder had died slowly over the years as reports came in from the outer colonies. People were disappearing. At first, it was just a few families here and there from the remote mining stations. The authorities called it equipment failures or pirate attacks, but Jake knew better. He had seen the fear in the eyes of the survivors who made it back to Earth. They spoke of being watched, of strange lights in the sky, of friends who vanished without a trace. Lisa Martinez had tried to warn everyone. The young scientist worked at Harmony Base, a research station that studied alien life forms. She had spent years collecting data about the Zephyrians and their true nature. Her reports sat ignored in government files while politicians spoke of the benefits of alien friendship. Lisa knew that over 50,000 humans had vanished from the outer colonies, but no one wanted to listen to her warnings. The truth was simple and terrible. The Zephyrians did not see humans as friends or equals. They saw them as the perfect prey for their favorite sport. The Great Hunt was about to begin, and humanity was the main attraction. Hunt-Master Vexthara stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled with sharp teeth as he looked at the blue-green world below. Earth was beautiful in the way that all hunting preserves were beautiful. The humans who lived there had no idea what was coming for them. They had spent 30 years growing comfortable with Zephyrian presence in their space. They trusted the aliens who had slowly been studying their every move and weakness. The Zephyrians had learned much about human behavior during those 30 years. They knew that humans were pack animals who worked together when threatened. They knew that humans could use tools and adapt to new situations quickly. They knew that humans had strong emotional bonds that could be used against them. Most importantly, they knew that humans had no natural weapons or defenses that could match Zephyrian technology. All of this made humans perfect for the Great Hunt. The sport required prey that was intelligent enough to provide a real challenge, but weak enough to eventually be caught. Other species they had hunted before were either too stupid to be interesting or too dangerous to be fun. Humans were just right. The Great Hunt was broadcast across the Zephyrian Empire as entertainment. Millions of alien viewers would watch as humans were captured, transported to hunting worlds, and released for the sport to begin. Betting on human survival was already popular among the alien population. The longer a human could survive, the more excitement it created for the audience. Jake Morrison received the emergency signal from Harmony Base just as the first Zephyrian ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Lisa Martinez's voice came through the communication system, broken and filled with static. Her research station was under attack. The aliens were not there to trade or negotiate. They were there to collect their prey. The attack on Harmony Base was swift and efficient. Zephyrian soldiers moved through the station with practiced ease, stunning humans with energy weapons and loading them into transport ships. Lisa managed to escape through a maintenance tunnel, clutching a datapad that contained years of research about Zephyrian weaknesses. She knew that information might be the only hope humanity had. On New Austin Colony, Jake Morrison watched the sky fill with alien ships. The colony's defenses were pathetic compared to Zephyrian technology. Energy beams cut through their shields like paper. Transport ships landed on the colony's surface and alien soldiers poured out. They moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey could not escape. The United Earth Defense Force tried to respond, but they were scattered across dozens of worlds and completely unprepared for an attack of this size. Their ships were destroyed or disabled within hours. Ground forces found that their weapons barely scratched Zephyrian armor. It was not a war, but a harvest. Jake Morrison gathered the colonists in the main shelter and tried to organize a defense. But he knew it was hopeless. Through the shelter's windows, he could see humans being loaded into alien transport ships like cargo. Children cried for their parents. Adults stood in shocked silence as their world ended around them. The great hunt had begun, and humanity was about to learn what it meant to be prey in a galaxy full of predators. The Zephyrians had planned this moment for 30 years, and now, nothing could stop them from taking what they wanted. Earth's colonies fell one by one as millions of humans were captured and prepared for transport to the hunting worlds. In the darkness of space, Huntmaster Vex Thura smiled as he watched his collection grow larger. Soon the hunting preserves would be full of fresh prey, and the greatest sport in Zephyrian history would begin. 6 months had passed since the great hunt began, and Captain Ben Sullivan found himself standing in a jungle that wanted to kill him. The trees of Zarian Prime reached toward a purple sky like twisted fingers, and every shadow could hide death. The air was thick and hot, filled with the sounds of creatures that had never seen a human before the Zephyrians brought them here. Ben looked at the 3 people who had become his family in this green hell. Dr. Amy Chun sat beside a small fire, cleaning wounds on her arms where the thorned vines had caught her during their escape from the latest hunting party. Rick Torres worked on a spear made from alien wood and metal scraps they had stolen from a crashed Zephyrian scout ship. Kelly Brooks kept watch at the edge of their small camp, her eyes scanning the jungle for any sign of their hunters. The humans had learned quickly that they were not just being hunted for sport. Hidden cameras watched their every move from the trees and rocks around them. Their struggles were broadcast across the Zephyrian Empire as entertainment. Alien viewers bet on how long each human would survive, how many would die each day, what new challenges the Huntmasters would create. On the ice world of Kronos, Claire Anderson pulled her stolen Zephyrian coat tighter around her body and watched the aurora dance across the frozen sky. She had been a pilot before the hunt began, flying supply ships between Earth's colonies. Now she was the leader of 43 humans who lived in ice caves and hunted their hunters with weapons made from salvaged alien technology. Claire had discovered something that chilled her more than the frozen winds of Kronos. The Zephyrians were changing the hunting grounds based on how well humans performed. When her group learned to hunt the ice predators for food, the aliens released new creatures that were harder to kill. When the humans built better shelters, environmental controls made the weather more dangerous. The hunt was designed to always stay challenging. Back on Zarian Prime, Ben Sullivan led his small group through the jungle toward what Amy Chun called the observation post. She had figured out that the Zephyrians needed to monitor their prey closely to make good entertainment. That meant they had equipment hidden throughout the hunting grounds. If the humans could find that equipment, they might learn something useful about their captors. The observation post was hidden inside what looked like a natural rock formation. Rick Torres used his engineering skills to break through the alien security systems. Inside, they found screens showing dozens of different hunting grounds and hundreds of human survivors scattered across 12 different worlds. The sight made Kelly Brooks clench her fists in anger. So many people were suffering for alien entertainment. Amy Chun studied the alien computer systems and made a discovery that changed everything. The Zephyrians were not just hunting the humans they had captured recently. They were breeding humans in special facilities to ensure a steady supply of prey. Children were being raised in controlled environments, taught just enough to survive but not enough to fight back effectively. When they reached the right age, they would be released into hunting grounds like fresh meat for the predators. On Earth, Lisa Martinez had reached the remains of the United Earth Defense Force with her stolen data about Zephyrian weaknesses. General Paul Roberts and scientist Dr. Kevin Liu worked with her to understand what the aliens had done to humanity. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. The Great Hunt was not a sudden attack but the end, result of 30 years of careful planning and preparation. Lisa's research showed that Zephyrian neural networks were vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies that human brains produced during extreme stress. When humans were terrified or fighting for their lives, their brains created signals that could disrupt alien technology. The Zephyrians knew about this weakness, which was why they kept their prey in a constant state of fear and desperation. Dr. Kevin Liu realized that this weakness could be turned into a weapon if humans could learn to control and amplify these brain signals. They might be able to fight back against their captors. The problem was getting this information to the humans trapped on the hunting worlds. Ben Sullivan's group made that possible when they captured a Zephyrian scout during a raid on the observation post. The alien was young and inexperienced, chosen for monitoring duty because the hunt masters thought it was safe work. Under questioning, the scout revealed the locations of other hunting grounds and the schedules of supply ships that moved between them. More importantly, the scout told them about the communication networks that connected all the hunting worlds. The Zephyrians used quantum communication systems to coordinate their hunts and broadcast the entertainment to their home worlds. If the humans could access those networks, they could contact other survivor groups and share information. Rick Torres worked for days to modify captured Zephyrian equipment into a communication device. When he finally made contact with Claire Anderson's group on Kronos, both teams realized they were not alone in their fight for survival. Across 12 worlds, human groups were learning to adapt and fight back against their hunters. The communication network grew as more groups were contacted. Amy Chun shared her medical knowledge about Zephyrian physiology. Claire Anderson taught others how to pilot captured alien vehicles. Kelly Brooks spread tactics for psychological warfare against their captors. Slowly, the scattered humans were becoming a coordinated resistance. The turning point came when Ben Sullivan's group staged the first successful escape from a hunting preserve. Using information from the captured scout and equipment stolen from the observation post, they hijacked a Zephyrian transport ship. The escape was broadcast live to alien audiences across the Empire, showing them something they had never seen before. The prey had become predators. Huntmaster Vex Thara watched the escape from his command ship and felt something he had never experienced before during a hunt. The humans were not behaving like proper prey. They were learning, adapting, and fighting back in ways that disrupted the careful balance of the Great Hunt. For the first time since the sport began, the predators were feeling like they might become the hunted. Colonel Lisa Martinez stood in the command center of the hidden base that humanity had built inside an asteroid near the edge of Earth's solar system. The data from Ben Sullivan's escape had changed everything. For the first time since the Great Hunt began, humans knew exactly where their people were being held and how to reach them. Lisa looked at the star charts showing the locations of 12 hunting worlds and felt a cold determination settle in her chest. The rescue missions began immediately. Lisa led the first team herself, taking engineer Sam Rodriguez, former CIA operative Nick Johnson, and combat specialist Dana White into Zephyrian space using a modified transport ship that looked like a regular cargo vessel. They had learned to hide their human brain signatures using technology reverse-engineered from captured alien equipment. Their target was a breeding facility on the moon of Kepler 7. Lisa's team infiltrated the facility during a shift change and found something that made even Nick Johnson's experienced hands shake with rage. Hundreds of human children lived in sterile white rooms, raised by automated systems and alien caretakers who taught them basic survival skills, but nothing about their true heritage or the fate that awaited them. The children thought the Zephyrians were their protectors. They had been taught that the outside universe was dangerous and that only their alien guardians could keep them safe. When Lisa's team tried to explain the truth, many of the children refused to believe them. The psychological conditioning was deep and carefully planned to create perfect prey. Sam Rodriguez worked to disable the facility's security systems while Dana White dealt with the alien guards. Nick Johnson used his psychological training to help convince the children that they were being rescued, not kidnapped. The mission took longer than planned, but they managed to evacuate over 200 children before Zephyrian reinforcements arrived. On the hunting worlds, the human resistance was growing stronger every day. Ben Sullivan had become a legend among the scattered survivor groups. He no longer ran from Zephyrian hunting parties but hunted them instead. His team had learned to use alien weapons and vehicles better than some of the aliens themselves. They moved through the jungles of Zarian Prime like ghosts, striking at observation posts and supply convoys, before disappearing back into the wilderness. Claire Anderson had done something even more impressive on Cronus. She had learned to fly, captured Zephyrian aircraft, and was using them to attack alien installations across the ice world. Her pilots were former cargo haulers and passenger transport crews who had never seen military service, but they fought with the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose. Dr. Amy Chen made the discovery that would change the war. Working with samples taken from captured Zephyrian equipment, she found that alien physiology was vulnerable to Earth-based pathogens. The Zephyrians had immune systems that were perfectly adapted to their home worlds but had no defense against bacteria and viruses that had evolved on Earth. Amy began developing biological weapons that could target Zephyrian biology without harming humans. The first test of Amy's bioweapons came when a Zephyrian hunting party cornered Ben Sullivan's group in a canyon on Zarian Prime. Instead of fighting with conventional weapons, Ben used aerosol dispensers filled with Amy's modified Earth bacteria. The alien hunters fell sick within hours, their bodies unable to fight off organisms they had never encountered before. News of the successful bioweapon TEST spread through the Resistance communication network that former communications officer Tony Lewis had established. Tony had been a civilian technician before the hunt began, but he had become the voice that connected human survivors across 12 worlds. His encrypted messages carried tactical information, emotional support, and proof that humanity was fighting back. The Zephyrians began to realize that their great hunt was becoming something else entirely. Huntmaster Vexthara received reports of failed hunting expeditions, destroyed observation posts, and missing breeding facilities. The entertainment value of the hunt was declining as human resistance made the sport less predictable and more dangerous for the hunters. More troubling for the Zephyrian Empire was the political situation developing at home. Several member species of the Empire had begun questioning the wisdom of the Great Hunt. The humans were proving to be more adaptable and dangerous than anyone had predicted. Some alien leaders worried that humanity might become a threat to the entire empire if they were not completely destroyed. Lisa Martinez launched Operation Reversal with simultaneous attacks on Zephyrian facilities in 3 different star systems. Her expanded team included veterans from the hunting worlds who had been rescued during earlier missions. These survivors brought knowledge of alien tactics and technology that proved invaluable in planning the attacks. The assault on the main breeding complex on Tau SETI-4 was led by Ben Sullivan himself. He had been brought to the asteroid base after his escape from Zarion Prime and had spent weeks planning the mission with Lisa's team. The breeding complex held over 3,000 human children and was heavily defended by Zephyrian military forces. Ben's team used a combination of conventional weapons, bioweapons, and psychological warfare to overwhelm the facility's defenses. They broadcast messages on Zephyrian communication frequencies that described in detail what would happen to any alien who harmed human children. The psychological pressure was as effective as their physical weapons. The rescue of the Tau Ceti breeding complex marked the first major victory of human resistance against the Zephyrian Empire. Over 3,000 children were freed and transported to hidden bases in human space. More importantly, the victory was broadcast across the Empire's entertainment networks by Claire Anderson, who had become humanity's chief propaganda specialist. Message that Claire sent to the Zephyrian Empire was simple and direct. Humans were no longer prey. They had become predators, and they would hunt down every alien who had participated in the Great Hunt. The sport that was supposed to provide entertainment had created an enemy that would never stop fighting until every human was free. Sam Rodriguez had reverse-engineered enough Zephyrian technology to begin mass production of human weapons and vehicles. The asteroid base had become a manufacturing center that produced equipment for resistance cells throughout human space. Every successful mission brought back more alien technology to be studied and copied. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. Huntmaster Vexthara no longer spoke of entertainment and sport. He spoke of containing a threat that could destroy the Zephyrian Empire. The prey had become predators, and the hunters were beginning to understand what it felt like to be hunted. Huntmaster Vexthara stood before the Zephyrian High Council and tried to explain how everything had gone wrong. The Great Hunt was supposed to be the Empire's greatest entertainment spectacle, watched by billions of viewers across dozens of worlds. Instead, it had become a nightmare that threatened the stability of their entire civilization. The council members listened with growing anger as Vexthara described the human resistance and their increasingly effective attacks. The debate in the council chamber was fierce. Some members wanted to exterminate all humans immediately before they could become an even greater threat. Others argued that such action would make the Empire look weak to their enemies. A few council members secretly admired human tenacity and suggested negotiating a peace agreement. But the majority voted to escalate the hunt by introducing advanced hunter-killer units equipped with the Empire's most deadly weapons. Ben Sullivan no longer thought of himself as a survivor. He was a predator, and the jungles of Zarion Prime had become his hunting ground. The man who had once run in terror from Zephyrian hunting parties now tracked them through the alien wilderness with the patience of a born killer. His team had grown to include dozens of humans who called him the Apex Predator, a title that spread fear through the ranks of their former hunters. Kelly Brooks had developed into something that surprised even Ben. Her natural talent for psychological warfare had grown into a sophisticated understanding of Zephyrian fears and weaknesses. She used captured communication equipment to broadcast messages that turned the aliens' own tactics against them. Where once they had terrorized humans with threats and demonstrations of power, now Kelly made them afraid to leave their fortified bases. The psychological campaign that Kelly created was devastatingly effective. She learned to speak several Zephyrian languages and used their communication networks to spread stories about human savagery and supernatural abilities. The aliens began to believe that humans could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and disappear like ghosts. Hunting parties reported seeing humans in places where no humans should be able to survive. On Earth, Colonel Lisa Martinez prepared for the largest operation in human military history. Operation Reversal had grown from a rescue mission into a full-scale war against the Zephyrian Empire. Her forces included veterans from every hunting world, children who had been freed from breeding facilities and trained as soldiers, and volunteers from Earth who were determined to make the aliens pay for what they had done to humanity. Sam Rodriguez had accomplished something that military engineers said was impossible. Using captured Zephyrian technology, he had built weapons and vehicles that were superior to the originals. Human creativity and desperation had improved upon alien designs in ways that their creators never imagined. The hunter-killer nanobots that Sam developed with Dr. Amy Chun could infiltrate both computer systems and biological processes simultaneously. The nanobots were tested on a Zephyrian patrol that had been hunting human children near the ruins of New Austin Colony. The microscopic weapons entered the aliens' bodies through their breathing apparatus and began dismantling their nervous systems from the inside. At the same time, the nanobots infected the patrol's vehicles and communication equipment, turning their own technology against them. Claire Anderson had transformed from a simple pilot into humanity's most effective propaganda weapon. She piloted a stolen Zephyrian command ship that could penetrate deep into enemy space without being detected. Her mission was to infiltrate the main broadcasting station that transmitted the Great Hunt entertainment to billions of alien viewers across the Empire. The infiltration of the broadcasting station was the turning point of the war. Claire and her team of former prisoners took control of the facility during a shift change and began transmitting their own content across the Empire's entertainment networks. Instead of humans being hunted and killed, alien viewers saw footage of Zephyrian defeats, human victories, and the liberation of breeding facilities. The message that Claire broadcast was simple but effective. The prey had become the predator. Humans were no longer victims but hunters who would track down every alien who had participated in the Great Hunt. The footage showed Ben Sullivan's team ambushing a Zephyrian patrol, Lisa Martinez's forces destroying an alien base, and children who had been freed from breeding facilities being trained as soldiers. The broadcast created panic throughout the Zephyrian Empire. Member species that had supported the Great Hunt began to question their allegiance to an empire that could not protect them from human retaliation. Some alien governments started secret negotiations with human representatives, hoping to avoid becoming targets of human revenge. Rick Torres had become an expert at reverse engineering Zephyrian technology under battlefield conditions. His teams could strip a captured alien vehicle and rebuild it as a human weapon in less than a day. More importantly, Rick had learned to modify Zephyrian computers to accept human control systems, giving the Resistance access to alien databases and communication networks. The intelligence gathered from captured Zephyrian systems revealed the true scope of the Empire's activities. The Great Hunt was just one of many entertainment programs that used captured intelligent species as prey. Dozens of other civilizations had been hunted to extinction for alien amusement. The Zephyrians had been conducting this type of genocide for centuries, always moving on to new prey when their current victims became too scarce to provide good entertainment. Dr. Amy Chun's biological weapons had evolved into something that terrified even their creators. Working with samples from dozens of different alien species, she had developed pathogens that could adapt to any non-human biology. The weapons were designed to be harmless to humans but deadly to any alien species that had participated in the Great Hunt. The first large-scale deployment of Amy's adaptive bioweapons came during the assault on the Zephyrian military base on Rigel 3. Lisa Martinez's forces released the organisms into the base's atmosphere recycling system, and within hours the entire alien garrison was dead or dying. The psychological impact was enormous. As news of the attack spread through Zephyrian military networks, Huntmaster Vex Thara found himself in the strange position of being hunted by his former prey. Human strike teams had infiltrated Zephyrian space and were systematically attacking facilities throughout the Empire. The aliens who had once broadcast human suffering as entertainment now lived in constant fear of human retaliation. The Empire's member species began to abandon the Alliance, as human attacks made Zephyrian protection worthless. Some alien governments offered to help humans in exchange for guarantees that they would not become targets. The political structure of the Empire was collapsing as quickly as its military forces. Ben Sullivan led the assault on the primary hunting preserve administration center on Kepler Prime. His forces moved through the facility like a plague, killing every alien they found and freeing the human prisoners held there. The attack was broadcast live across both human and Zephyrian communication networks as a demonstration of what happened to aliens who hunted humans. The Great Hunt had become the Great Reversal, and the galaxy was learning a lesson that would never be forgotten. Humanity had been prey once, but they had evolved into something far more dangerous than their former hunters could imagine. The Zephyrian Empire was dying, and Huntmaster Vexthara knew that he was responsible for its destruction. What had begun as the greatest entertainment spectacle in galactic history had become an existential threat to every world in the Empire. Vexthara stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched human vessels move through space with a confidence that chilled him to his core. The prey had become apex predators, and they were hunting their former captors with methodical precision. Commander Jake Morrison had survived the initial attack on New Austin Colony and spent 3 years as a prisoner on the hunting world of Sigma Draconis. Now he stood on the bridge of the captured Zephyrian dreadnought, Retribution, and commanded a fleet of human vessels that struck fear into alien hearts across the galaxy. His forces included veterans from every hunting preserve, soldiers who understood their enemies better than the enemies understood themselves. Jake's fleet moved through Zephyrian space like a plague, destroying military installations and freeing human prisoners wherever they found them. The aliens who had once hunted humans for sport now fled in terror when human ships appeared in their systems. The psychological advantage had shifted completely, and Jake intended to use it to end the war as quickly as possible. Ben Sullivan had become a legend throughout both human and Zephyrian space. The man who had once hidden in jungles and ice caves now led ground forces that specialized in hunting their former hunters. His soldiers did not just defeat Zephyrian forces, they terrorized them with the same methodical cruelty that the aliens had once used on humans. The psychological impact was devastating to alien morale throughout the Empire. Ben's teams had perfected the art of psychological warfare. They would capture Zephyrian outposts and leave messages for other alien forces to find. The messages described in detail what would happen to any alien who had participated in the Great Hunt. They promised that humans would hunt down every participant, no matter how long it took or how far they tried to run. Dr. Kevin Liu had developed what human scientists called empathy weapons, devices that forced Zephyrians to experience the emotions that their human prey had felt during the hunt. The weapons used electromagnetic fields to stimulate alien brain chemistry, creating feelings of terror, desperation, and helplessness. For aliens who had never experienced fear as prey animals, the psychological shock was overwhelming. The empathy weapons proved more effective than conventional arms at breaking Zephyrian resistance. Alien soldiers who were exposed to the devices often surrendered immediately rather than continue fighting. Some suffered permanent psychological damage that left them unable to function as military personnel. The weapons turned the aliens' own capacity for emotion against them. Colonel Lisa Martinez had been promoted to general and given command of all human military operations. Her strategic planning had transformed scattered resistance cells into a coordinated military force that could challenge the Zephyrian Empire on equal terms. The asteroid base had grown into a massive military complex that produced weapons, ships, and trained soldiers for the war effort. Lisa's intelligence network had infiltrated Zephyrian space so thoroughly that human agents often knew about alien military movements before the aliens themselves did. Former prisoners who had learned alien languages and customs during their captivity now served as spies and saboteurs throughout the Empire. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. The climactic battle began when human forces launched a coordinated assault on the Zephyrian homeworld of Zephyr Prime. Jake Morrison's fleet provided orbital support while Lisa Martinez led the ground assault on the planetary capital. Ben Sullivan's elite forces targeted the Great Hunt Command Center where the entire entertainment operation had been coordinated. The battle for Zephyr Prime was broadcast across the galaxy by Claire Anderson, who had established a propaganda network that rivaled the Empire's own entertainment systems. Alien viewers watched in horror as human forces systematically dismantled the military infrastructure that had protected the Zephyrian homeworld for thousands of years. Rick Torres had developed new weapons specifically for the assault on Zephyr Prime. His engineering teams had created devices that could disable Zephyrian technology by overloading their power systems with electromagnetic pulses. The weapons were particularly effective against the Empire's planetary defense networks, which had been designed to repel conventional attacks but could not handle the innovative human approach to warfare. The assault on the Great Hunt Command Center was led by Ben Sullivan himself. His forces moved through the facility like vengeful spirits, hunting down every alien who had participated in the entertainment program that had cost so many human lives. The command center contained detailed records of every hunt, every human death, and every alien who had bet on human suffering. Dr. Amy Chen's biological weapons had evolved into their final form during the assault on Zephyr Prime. The organisms she had developed could now adapt to any alien biology within hours of first contact. When released into the atmosphere of the Zephyrian capital, the weapons began systematically eliminating every non-human life form while leaving human soldiers completely unharmed. The psychological impact of the bioweapons was as devastating as their physical effects. Aliens throughout the Empire realized that humans had developed the ability to eliminate entire species at will. The fear that spread through alien populations was the same terror that humans had experienced during the Great Hunt, but magnified by the knowledge that resistance was futile. Hunt-Master Vexthara was captured alive during the final assault on the command center. Ben Sullivan's forces found him barricaded in his private office, surrounded by trophies taken from human victims. Over the years, the alien who had orchestrated the suffering of millions of humans was taken prisoner to face justice for his crimes. The capture of Vexthara marked the effective end of organized Zephyrian resistance. With their homeworld under human control and their military forces scattered or destroyed, the Empire's member species began surrendering individually. Some alien governments offered to help humans track down remaining Great Hunt participants in exchange for protection from human retaliation. Sam Rodriguez had established manufacturing facilities on captured Zephyrian worlds that produced human weapons and vehicles using alien resources. The technology that had once been used to hunt humans was now being turned against its creators. Human forces were better equipped than they had ever been, using weapons that combined human innovation with alien technology. The final phase of the Great Reversal involved hunting down every individual who had participated in the Great Hunt entertainment program. Human strike teams used captured Zephyrian databases to track down aliens who had bet on human deaths, worked in breeding facilities, or served as hunters in the preserves. The message was clear. Every participant would be held accountable for Their crimes: General Lisa Martinez established military tribunals to process the thousands of alien prisoners who had been captured during the war. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy as a demonstration of human justice and a warning to any species that might consider similar actions in the future. The aliens who had once found entertainment in human suffering now faced the same fate they had imposed on their victims. The great reversal was complete. Humanity had transformed from prey to predator, from victim to victor. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Humans might be hunted, but they would never be destroyed. And when they fought back, they fought with a determination and creativity that their enemies could never match. 5 years had passed since the Great Hunt began, and the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship and looked out at the fleet of human vessels that now protected this sector of space. The ships bore the symbols of the Human Protectorate, an organization that had grown from humanity's desperate fight for survival into the most powerful military force in known space. The former hunting preserves had been transformed into human military bases and research facilities. Zarian Prime, where Ben Sullivan had first learned to hunt his hunters, now housed the Protectorate's elite training academy. Kronos, where Claire Anderson had mastered alien technology, had become a manufacturing center that produced the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The worlds that had once been places of human suffering were now strongholds of human power. Huntmaster Vexthara sat in a detention cell on the Human Research Station that had been built from the ruins of his former command center. The alien who had once orchestrated the suffering of millions of humans was now the subject of intense study by human scientists who wanted to understand the psychology that had made the Great Hunt possible. His trial had been broadcast across the galaxy, and his testimony had revealed the full scope of Zephyrian crimes against intelligent species. The trial had been more than just justice for humanity. Vexthara's testimony revealed that the Zephyrian Empire had been conducting similar hunts against dozens of other species for centuries. Entire civilizations had been hunted to extinction for alien entertainment. The Great Hunt against humanity had been just the latest in a long series of genocides disguised as sport. Ben Sullivan now led the Never Again Protocol, a network of human agents who monitored galactic civilizations for signs of predatory behavior against intelligent species. His motto had spread throughout human space: "We were prey once, never again." The former hunting preserve survivor had become the galaxy's most effective protector of vulnerable species. Ben's agents operated throughout known space, investigating reports of species being hunted or enslaved for entertainment. When they found evidence of such activities, they acted with swift and decisive force. The galaxy had learned that humanity would not tolerate the abuse of intelligent life, and the mere threat of human intervention was often enough to stop predatory behavior. Before it could begin, General Lisa Martinez had been appointed as the first director of the Xenological Research Division, an organization dedicated to understanding and preventing the conditions that led to the Great Hunt. Her team included Dr. Amy Chun, who had developed new medical technologies to help other species defend themselves against biological weapons, and Sam Rodriguez, who shared human engineering innovations with allied civilizations. Lisa's research had identified the social and economic factors that made civilizations susceptible to developing predatory entertainment industries. The Protectorate now provided early intervention programs to help alien societies avoid the cultural degradation that had led to the Zephyrian Empire's crimes. Prevention was always preferable to the military intervention that had been necessary to stop the Great Hunt. Claire Anderson had become the voice of the Human Protectorate, broadcasting messages of hope and protection to species throughout the galaxy. Her propaganda network, which had once spread fear among Zephyrian forces, now carried promises of human protection to any species that faced existential threats. The former pilot had become humanity's ambassador to the galaxy. Dr. Kevin Liu continued his research into empathy weapons and other non-lethal technologies that could be used to stop aggressive species without resorting to genocide. The human approach to galactic security emphasized rehabilitation over destruction, understanding over revenge. The goal was to create a galaxy where no species would ever again face the horror that humanity had endured. The Protectorate's most important achievement was the establishment of the Galactic Protection Accords, a treaty signed by over 200 intelligent species that committed them to protecting vulnerable civilizations from predatory behavior. The accords created a legal framework for intervention when species were threatened with extinction or enslavement. Rick Torres had established research centers throughout human space where alien technologies were studied and improved upon. The reverse engineering programs that had begun during the Resistance now served a peaceful purpose, developing new technologies that could benefit all intelligent species. Human innovation continued to surprise alien scientists with its creativity and effectiveness. The former hunting worlds had become symbols of humanity's transformation from victim to protector. Schools had been built where alien children learned about the Great Hunt and the importance of protecting vulnerable species. The message was always the same: strength should be used to protect the weak, not to exploit them. Dr. Amy Chun's medical research had led to breakthroughs in treating trauma and psychological damage in species that had survived predatory attacks. Her clinics throughout the galaxy provided care for survivors of various forms of abuse and helped them rebuild their lives. The healing of psychological wounds was considered as important as physical protection. The trials of Great Hunt participants had continued for years, with human courts processing thousands of cases involving aliens who had participated in the entertainment program. The sentences varied based on the level of involvement, but the message was consistent: crimes against intelligent species would be punished, regardless of how much time had passed. Sam Rodriguez had developed new technologies that allowed rapid communication between distant star systems, creating a network that could coordinate protective responses to threats anywhere in the galaxy. The communication system that had once connected human resistance cells now served as the backbone of galactic security operations. Admiral Jake Morrison reflected on how much had changed since that terrible day when Zephyrian ships had first appeared over New Austin Colony. Humanity had faced extinction and had not only survived, but had become the protectors of other species facing similar threats. The prey had become predators, but they had chosen to use their power to protect rather than to hunt. The children who had been freed from Zephyrian breeding facilities were now adults serving in the Protectorate military and research divisions. They had been given the choice of their own futures rather than being raised as prey for alien entertainment. Many of them had dedicated their lives to ensuring that no other children would face the horrors they had escaped. The galaxy now knew a fundamental truth that had been written in human blood and alien tears: no species should ever be hunted for entertainment. Humanity had learned this lesson as victims, but they had chosen to teach it as protectors. The Great Hunt was over, but the watch would continue forever. In schools throughout human space, children learned the history of the Great Hunt not as a story of revenge, but as a lesson about responsibility. Those who had the power to protect others had a duty to use that power wisely. Humanity had been prey once, but they had ensured that no one else would ever have to endure what they had suffered. The stars that had once brought terror now brought hope, carried by human ships that patrolled the galaxy with a simple mission: never again would any species face extinction for the entertainment of others. The hunt was over, and the age of protection had begun.